Hello and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about this guy, the original dedicated handheld GOAT, the Nintendo 3DS. And I've seen a lot of people recently doing a what's on my modded 3DS video, and as you can see here I have a number of different 3DS systems, but this one was my original 3DS system. It travelled from the original 3DS here through to a 3DS XL, and then onto the new Nintendo 3DS. I was able to transfer the data between all systems, and this one remains unmodded. I do have a few different modded 3DSs in my collection, but I thought it would be interesting to do a video on an unmodded 3DS, and treat this somewhat as a bit of a time capsule. This is what's going to be on here forever. There's no more eShop anymore. The console is basically done and finished with in terms of releases, so this is what will be on this Nintendo 3DS from here on out. And I thought it would be interesting. I had a 3DS from day one, so this is a system that's been there from launch to give you a real life actual view where we can look at a console, what it was like through the entire life cycle. One of the main aims of this video is hopefully to help you find a lot of hidden gems or things that you may have missed. So first off, the most obvious thing to notice is the system menu and layout itself. I absolutely adored the 3DS for this. The customizable themes, the way you can customize all your screens, your home screen, the music that plays. I have the music turned off at the minute, but if we turn it up, we should be able to hear. Each theme came with its own unique menu music and everything, which was fantastic. And it just gave the console a lot of personality. Unlike the Switch that only has the kind of black and white themes, this one just had such a unique personality, as I've said, and you could really get a customization going on the system and make it your own. So on the system, as you can see, I don't have a game inserted in the game card slot at the moment, so that's just empty, but I have everything sorted into a lot of different folders, and we're going to take a look in each one as we go through. So I'm going to do this all with the stylus. So there's the now defunct Nintendo eShop, sadly shut down recently, and unfortunately will no longer be supported. Here we have the 3DS camera. This is all obvious stuff from day one. And then we have the download play. A cool little feature that allowed you to just play multiplayer with one game cart. Really handy if your friends didn't have the game. The activity log is one thing that I really wish was on the Nintendo Switch as well. Hopefully Nintendo starts to implement this again in the future. This was just a fun way of tracking how many times you've played each game, the amount of time you spent on each game. It's a really fun little tool to keep a track of your gaming. And on to my first folder, which is the NES. So if I open it up here, we'll go through each thing. As you can see here, I've got a couple of Famicom logos from the Badge Arcade. And then we'll go through these games. As people will remember that were there at the start of the 3DS, that we did have the Ambassador program, so some of these games were given for free on the Ambassador program, and that was when they reduced the price of the 3DS. Anyone that had bought it originally got a selection of games for free. So we have Mario and Yoshi, Balloon Fight, Wrecking Crew, Metroid, and for a while this was really a Metroid system. It had some great Metroid games that you couldn't get anywhere else, so this was a great place to play Metroid. We have one of the best platformers of all time, Super Mario Bros. 3. This is actually the way I first played this game, believe it or not. We have the side-scrolling Legend of Zelda or Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, Donkey Kong Jr., and of course we had to have the original Super Mario Bros. I done a playthrough of a lot of different Mario games actually last year, and I played a lot of them on the 3DS. And beside that we have Super Mario Bros. 2, or as we know it over here in the West, Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. A very hard game, a really hard platformer, but it's great to have it on the system. Ice Climber is next, then NES Open Tournament Golf. I actually don't think I've ever got around to playing that one. The original Legend of Zelda, And then we have Super Mario Bros. 2. This is the original Western release of that game. Moving on to our next folder, and we have eShop games, and this is where things are going to get really interesting. There's a lot of really cool hidden gems in here, and hopefully all of you can find something that you'll be interested in picking up. Some of these games I did get near the end of the 3DS and I haven't had a chance to play them yet, but we'll go through each one and show off what we have. So first up, the Starship Damre. This is a really interesting title, and this was kind of part of a number of different games that were kind of like an indie initiative on 3DS. You wake up on a starship, stranded, and it's kind of a bit of a walking simulator. You're walking around trying to figure out what happened to you. An excellent game. Another one in that series of small, more indie type titles on the 3DS was Bugs vs. Tanks. This one pretty much is as it says, it's Bugs vs. Tanks. A fun little isometric kind of top-down tactical army game. And here we have one of the best hidden gems, or one of the best jewels in the crown of the 3DS. It is Attack of the Friday Monsters. Anyone out there that's interested in Studio Ghibli movies, this is definitely a game you're going to want to play. The art style looks exactly like Ghibli movies. It looks fantastic. It has this real anime cool feel about it. And you've got somewhat of a kind of open world. You're going around trying to figure out why these monsters are coming and attacking the town that you live in. It's got a really cool story. It's a short enough game. It's one that could be beaten over just a weekend. And this is an absolutely fantastic game. Of all the eShop games, this is probably the one that I would say would be the best to pick up. On the Switch, the Shin-chan games recently have got a lot of notoriety, and if you like those, if you like the art style, the way they play, this is very similar to that. Moving along, we've got Crimson Shroud. This one I haven't really got a chance to delve into and play yet. I did pick it up near the end of the 3DS's life cycle, and I've heard really good things about it. Weapon Shop Damacy is up next. This is kind of a funny rhythm type, very Japanese game, and it's about a father and son. You work in a crafting weapons kind of manufacturing shop, and you're making weapons for characters to go out and fight with in their kind of RPG adventures. And as I said at the start, it is kind of rhythm based, so you use this kind of rhythm based gameplay to kind of forge the weapons and get them together. And I remember this one being kind of divisive when it came out. The reviews for it were a bit up and down. Some places were giving it a great score. I think it's a really unique title to have on the 3DS. The next up in the series of kind of indie games, it was part of the Guild collection, so that Starship Damre, for example, was part of that, was Aero Porter. And in this game, you're basically tasked with being part of a puzzle type of game mechanic. You're sorting out people's luggage at the airport. It's a fun, quirky little title. I didn't find this one super great, but it's interesting enough to give a bit of a go to if you're in the mood for a puzzle type of game. Potzol's Puzzle is what we have up next, and this one was really, really awesome. I loved this game, and the interesting thing about this one, I think it's called a different name in other regions, but I'm in the EU here. So Potzol's Puzzle is what it's called over here, and the 3D on this one is really, really good. If you're a fan of Tetris, you'll like this one. So it's 3D Tetris, and the pieces are kind of flying through the air. And then you can probably see from the logo of the game there are little cutout holes and shapes, and you have to guide them through that. A really unique 3D take on Tetris, and this one's awesome with the 3D effect. Nintendo Pocket Football Club. This is a kind of football management simulator from Nintendo. You play a kid's kind of football team. You get to pick and choose the players. It's really strange that Nintendo actually made this. Obviously, real hardcore football fans are going to want the like of FIFA or previously Pro Evolution Soccer, but this is a kind of cute, fun, Nintendo-inspired kind of little way to play football game. So next up, we'll talk about 3 games all together. You can see them in a line here, and it is the Blocks series. So Pull Blocks, Fall Blocks, these games are excellent. I would really love to see these ones come to a more modern Nintendo system. These are puzzle games, somewhat like the Catherine series, if anyone's ever played that, where you're pushing and pulling blocks up to try and get up to the top of a goal at the top of the stage. This is just a really fun, playful version of that type of game. It has an amazing editor you can use to make your own block puzzles. Really fun. There's so much gameplay in these. Hopefully we get to see it shortly on a brand new system, but these are great games, some of the best that you can get in terms of digital titles on the 3DS. SpeedX 3D, this is one that I'd heard people talking about, and I picked it up near the end of the eShop's life cycle, so I haven't really had a massive amount of time to play on this one. I believe you can currently get it for Android devices as well, but this is kind of a racing game where you're flying through these kind of 3D tunnels. They're kind of kaleidoscope type levels. It's really hard on the eyes. You get some really cool visuals and wacky stuff going on here, almost like those puzzles that you used to get for your eyes, the 3D puzzles. There's different blocks and things in the way. You have to dodge out of the road of them. It's really cool in terms of the 3D and the actual visuals, but I do need to spend more time with this one to get a full kind of view of it. Nintendo Badge Arcade, this one was awesome. It's so sad to see this kind of go. You could play a few different kind of carnival mini games, a little crane game, and obviously win yourself different badges to decorate your 3DS home screen with. A really cool idea, something I'd love to see implemented again on Nintendo consoles to give the home screen a bit more personality. A fantastic game. Dylan's Rolling Western, The Last Ranger. There are a couple of Dylan's Rolling Western games on the 3DS, and this is a digital only title, at least here in the EU. And then we have Dylan's Rolling Western, the first one. Ironfall Invasion. This is somewhat of a disappointing game to me, but it was really ambitious, probably a little too ambitious for the hardware it was on. It's a third-person shooter game, and this is one that a lot of people probably ended up having on their 3DS because it was originally free to kind of enter into this game. You were able to play the multiplayer as a free to kind of start game, and it let you play the first mission of the single player campaign, and then down the line you had to pay to get more of the game after that. It wasn't really a great one. The graphics and stuff were kind of cool for the time in terms of it being on the 3DS, but I think it was trying to push far too much for what the 3DS could do. Unfortunately, it's not one of the best. Go-Go Coca-Polo 3D. This game in the last year or so actually got a good bit of exposure because it ended up being one of the very last 3DS physical releases ever to come out, and that was done by Limited Run Games. The game started off as a DSiWare game, and then we ended up getting this, which is kind of like a sequel or more type of remake, advanced version of the first one. And this is an action puzzle game. It's got some really cool mechanics in it. The art style, the pixel work and graphics in this are really awesome as well, and if you love collecting physical on the 3DS, as I've said, it's worth trying to hunt down a copy of this on the Nintendo 3DS. Next up we have Sky Piece. This is a side-scrolling runner type of game, so an endless runner. But the difference with this one, you can actually move the character around a fair bit, if I remember, so you aren't just stuck to the kind of one space on the screen and then going up and down. You can move about a bit, and it's about avoiding enemies, doing a lot of collecting, the typical kind of speed, high score chaser in terms of an endless running game. I quite liked this one. The visuals on it I thought were really cool. You're obviously up in the sky, in the clouds. Very nice visuals, very sharp on the 3DS's screen. And this one was very budget. I believe it was in around £1 or £2, so nothing in terms of great expense. Obviously now the best and only way to get this is through having a modded 3DS, so it'll be worth picking up for nothing. Gunman Clive, a game that has managed to escape the 3DS. You can pick this up on the Nintendo Switch. An amazing art style, this kind of hand-drawn pencil type of art style. Gunman Clive is deceptively hard. I had a real big challenge playing this one, but it's an excellent little side-scrolling game. Gunman Clive 2, the sequel, more of the same. Then we had Steel Divers Sub Wars. This was the download-only Steel Divers game, not to be confused with the launch title that came on the system. Another one that managed to escape the clutches of the 3DS and make its way to Switch. This is Box Boy. These are great games, puzzle games where you play as QB, the little box there, and you can make more boxes appear to solve little puzzles, and you have to use as few as possible to get your way through different scenarios. An excellent little puzzle game for anyone that's interested. Chain Blaster, again, picked this one up near the end of the eShop. Haven't really got round to playing it. Unfortunately, you can let me know in the comments if you've played that one or any of these other titles. Kami is a paper-based puzzle game. It involves origami. This is a cool puzzle game. It's really laid back if you're just looking for something to kick back and have a relaxing time with and kind of submerge yourself into that kind of Japanese culture of origami and just the relaxing nature of it. Kami's definitely worth checking out. Kirby's Blowout Blast. This is a Kirby download exclusive title. DDD's Drum Dash Deluxe, a rhythm-based game in the Kirby universe. Again, download only. Harmo Knight. This is going to be an interesting one for anyone that's fans of Pokemon, because this game came from the same company that makes Pokemon, Game Freak, and this is kind of a rhythm-based game, as you can tell from the title, kind of Harmony, Harmo Knight. I didn't really think this one was particularly good. I was expecting a bit more from Game Freak, and this one was priced a bit higher at the time. Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge. I have never played this one. I think it was a free to download on the Nintendo eShop, and I made sure I got it before the store closed down, but I don't really have anything much more to say other than that. Yet another game that managed to escape the clutches of the 3DS system, and this is SteamWorld Dig, a fistful of dirt. For a while there, this was a really big deal on 3DS because this was an exclusive eShop title that you could kind of hang your hat on and say, look, the 3DS has this awesome game and there's no way to get it anywhere else, but it ended up migrating to other systems. I'm glad it did because this game is great and it deserves to have that wider life and that wider kind of span of fans and to keep going. Pokédex 3D, again, this was picked up at the end of the eShop just to make sure I had it in place before that thing closed down. Same with Pokemon Shuffle. And of course the Pokemon Bank, which has become very important in terms of migrating your Pokemon right up to the latest versions on Nintendo Switch. Another free to download game, Pokemon Rumble World. Pocket Card Jockey. This one's recently ended up on the Switch as well. It's kind of like a remake, remastered version on the Switch. It actually went to the Apple Arcade on mobile phones, and then that Apple Arcade version was ported over to the Nintendo Switch, but this is the original. If you like solitaire, if you like fun, cute little games, this one's really fun and really interesting to get a grip of. Liberation Maiden is another one that I'm sure fans of the 3DS will remember quite fondly. This game came from the designer of Killer 7 and No More Heroes series, Suda51. And again, this was part of that Guild series of games, so I believe the Guild games came as a compilation package in Japan, but in the EU and in America, they were released as individual standalone titles for a kind of cheaper price for each one. This game was really ambitious for the 3DS. It's a free-roaming, shooter-up kind of game, a lot of cool 3D visuals and effects, a lot of things flying past you and missiles flying everywhere, so it looked great with the 3D effect. Pokemon Picross. This is an exclusive Picross game in the Pokemon series. I believe this was only ever released on 3DS. My Nintendo Picross The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. It's a mouthful of a name for a mouthful of a game. My Nintendo was an exclusive kind of reward scheme where you could get different things. You could get a lot of physical rewards and things like that. It seemed to go away for a bit and now it's come back again with physical rewards on the Switch, which is great, but this is one of the rewards that you could get at the time, and it was a version of Picross for The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I can't remember how many points this cost to end up getting, but I had to save up for it and get it. The eShop now being closed down, this exclusive version of Picross just to the 3DS and just to the My Nintendo service, really obscure and strange game. It's great to have it on the system. The Denpa Men, I believe this is going to be coming out on the Nintendo Switch. I think it's maybe a new version of the Denpa Men, a really strange, crazy, nutty Japanese style of game. Guramin 3D, this is a really overlooked kind of hidden gem on the system. And this was the great thing about 3DS. Every now and again, you were just served up with these small little eShop games, and they were fun, bite-sized, cool little experiences, and it just felt like the indie scene or that kind of smaller scene on the console was really alive and well. The setup of the game mainly is, it's kind of a dungeon crawling game, a lot of kind of dungeon puzzles. It'll remind you somewhat of Zelda in that way. This one's a great story, a really cool RPG dungeon crawling kind of game. And it was a really big surprise back in the day. It took me about 10 or so hours to finish this one if memory serves, so not the longest of games, but a fun and unique title on the 3DS for sure. Sadame, I'd heard a lot about this one. Again, it's one I haven't really got into, with it coming near the end of the 3DS's lifespan. I picked this one up. It's an RPG game is all I know, and I've heard good things about it, but again, haven't really got too much time to play it myself. The next little section I have here is for DSi games. So I have Aurora Climber. This is a really kind of basically what would now be classed as a phone game, where you're kind of jumping up and trying to get a high score chaser. Zelda 4 Swords Anniversary Edition. Photo Dojo. This is a really fun and interesting game. Back in the day on the 3DS, you could use the 3D camera to take pictures in the real world of people and then create your character in a fighting game. Not the best in terms of fighting game, in terms of mechanics and things, but a fun idea nonetheless. 3D Space Tank. Haven't really had a chance to play this one, picked it up near the end of the eShop, but from memory it looks like a Virtual Boy kind of experience. WarioWare Snapped. This is an exclusive WarioWare game to the DSiWare. It's not the best WarioWare game, but again, using the camera that was on the DSi and then the 3DS to play the game. And Mario vs. Donkey Kong's Minis March Again. I actually had some trouble with this for a long time. This game ended up being completely unusable on my system, couldn't open it, couldn't seem to get it working and playing, had a lot of communication with Nintendo's support, and they wanted me to send in my 3DS system. I never bothered doing it because everything else worked fine, but eventually, after transferring it through a few different 3DSs, this title just randomly started working one day. Now we're on to Virtual Console games on the Game Boy. Really awesome that the Virtual Console on this handheld system was focused around a lot of handheld games, surprise, but it was really cool. Mole Mania, a fun game on the Game Boy. This one was actually relatively rare, and this was a really good chance to pick it up on 3DS. You can see here as well, I've got a number of different 3DS badges that were Game Boy or Pokemon themed. Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy, one of the often overlooked Donkey Kong games. Super Mario Land 2 and Super Mario Land 1. These are often overlooked games, and I think they're kind of talked down badly upon. You can play them on the Switch as well now, which is great. It took a long time for them to get there, the two of them. I ended up picking up Super Mario Land, the first one, back in a trade in primary school when I was a young child, and that's why I think I have such a fondness for this game. A lot of people don't seem to like it, but I really love it. I traded a couple of Pokemon cards to a guy, and I got a bundle with a few different things in it, and this was one of them. And I'm really nostalgic for this title. I love it. I think the music is absolutely amazing, and I just love the Super Mario Land series in general. Kirby's Dream Land. This is really short and a really easy game. Kirby games obviously known for being very short, but this one can literally be beaten in less than an hour. It's a very short, very easy experience. And I can't imagine getting myself in the headspace of going out and buying this full price back in 1992 when it came out, and then coming home and beating it in about an hour or so. But I guess it was just a game and a sign of the times, but things have moved on a lot from then. Trip World, another one that recently ended up coming out on the Nintendo Switch. For a long time, this was a super rare game, and a very easy way of getting it was when it was released on the 3DS. Wario Land 3, part of the Wario Land series. It's great that you can play those titles on 3DS. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. This is the Game Boy Color version. We did have the original Link's Awakening on Game Boy, just in black and white. This color version ended up adding a few different puzzles that kind of used color as a way to beat them, if memory serves. But obviously now you can get this game on the beautiful looking Nintendo Switch edition of Link's Awakening. Then we have some Pokemon games. So we have Pokémon Silver, Pokémon Gold, and in the middle, Pokémon Yellow version. I think the version I put the most time into when I was a child was this yellow version. I ended up getting it for my birthday, and I just loved the fact that I had the yellow version. Pikachu followed you around. It was a little bit different than the other two, and just what a wild ride Pokemon has been on from these games back in the day right through to now. It's become an absolute phenomenon, and it's crazy to think that I played this as a child and it's still going on today, and it's bigger than ever. Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. These games were unique in terms of when they came out on the Game Boy Color. The games weren't actually made by Nintendo themselves, so they're a little bit different in terms of the Zelda series. A lot of people really like these ones, and they do link in together as well. Once you complete both of them, you can use a code and they do link together. Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters. I think this was one of the first eShop titles, if I am remembering correctly, that I ended up picking up on 3DS. Kirby's Dream Land 2. This is the sequel to the original Kirby's Dream Land that we showed earlier on. I believe this one is a good bit longer and a bit more challenging, but still very easy Kirby platforming, as we are all accustomed to. 3D Classics is my next folder. These games were absolutely incredible. So for those that don't know, 3D Classics was a line of games that Nintendo took from the NES days and kind of gave them a new coat of paint, a new lease of life, updated them so that they had 3D visuals, so the background and foreground were different. Some of these worked out really well. So we have Kirby's Adventure, Twin Bee, we have Urban Champion. I actually really liked the 3D on Urban Champion, I thought it looked really good. We have Xevious, Excite Bike. I actually put a lot of time into this one. Again, if memory serves me correct, I believe the first 3D Classics game was free for a period of time at the start when they first released this series, or else for a very low price. It was something like that. It came out and it was a really good deal. I remember either free or really low priced, and I picked up Excite Bike, and I remember taking this on many a journey and playing it a lot. And then we have the original Kid Icarus game, a really hard as nails platforming game, and it's great in the 3D Classics version. There's a real definition between the foreground and background on this one. Videos are up next, and people will remember that 3DS actually ended up having a lot of video content on it, but a lot of it ended up getting taken away or discontinued over time. So we had the like of the Nintendo Video. This would update with different 3D videos that you could watch. The same with Eurosport here in Europe. And then I won't go through all of these, but there was a number of 3D trailers that you could download, and I remember being so hyped with this because before you got the 3DS, it was really hard to kind of understand the selling point of the screen and what games would look like. But having a 3DS and being able to show friends and family what upcoming games were going to look like, or be able to test out the 3D yourself to see these trailers in the third dimension, it was really great. Some of my favorites, I watched this Metal Gear Solid 3D one a number of times. I thought the 3D on Metal Gear Solid 3 was fantastic. I'll quickly just skip through these so you can see what ones are on here. I was really impressed with the 3D in Luigi's Mansion 2 as well, and the original Luigi's Mansion that got a re-release on 3DS. Couple of different Kid Icarus Uprising trailers as well here. Paper Mario, and then here we have a really interesting one, Green Lantern, the trailer for the terrible movie, but it was cool getting a trailer for an actual Hollywood movie that was going to come out in cinema as a 3D movie and being able to see it on the 3DS screen. This is something I wish Nintendo had have gone a bit more hardcore on, maybe done some deals with some kind of movie studios and being able to get movies on here in 3 dimensions would have been really fun, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. And before I go any further as well, in terms of those videos, the really cool thing I remember being hyped for E3 back in the day, and those videos seem to appear very quickly after E3, so you were watching your favourite games journalists or whoever website it was covering the thing and seeing these games. And then within a day or two, these trailers were on your 3DS and you could get the experience of the show floor looking at them in 3D. It was really cool. Game Boy Advance games, again, these were given as the Ambassador program, so this was the only way to get Game Boy Advance games, I believe, initially on the 3DS. So I'll go through these quickly. We had F-Zero, Maximum Velocity, Yoshi's Island, Kirby, and The Amazing Mirror. Wario Land 4, another Wario Land game that you can play in the series on 3DS. Legend of Zelda and the Minish Cap, an often overlooked Game Boy Advance Zelda game, but it's really cool. I love the visuals in that one. WarioWare Inc., Mario Kart Super Circuit. This is one of the first Game Boy Advance games. In fact, I think it's the first Game Boy Advance game that I played. My brother ended up getting a Game Boy Advance before I did, and he got Mario Kart with it, and I remember being blown away, just thinking this is so cool that you have the visuals of this Mario Kart game in handheld. Seems so quaint now, but back then it was really cool. Metroid Fusion, I had that one back in the day on Game Boy Advance as well, and for a time this was the only way to really get a copy of this without having the original hardware. Mario vs Donkey Kong. And of course, a Fire Emblem game, The Sacred Stones. I've never tried that one out myself, but I'm assuming, it being Fire Emblem, it's probably pretty good. Sega 3D Classics. Much as the line of the Nintendo 3D Classics, this one was doing the same thing, but with Sega games, really brilliantly ported over to the 3DS. Streets of Rage, one of my favourite Mega Drive or Genesis games. Echo the Dolphin in 3D. Afterburner in 3D, this one looks awesome with the 3D effect. As it does Space Harrier, in fact I think that's one of the more impressive 3D games on the 3DS. Outrun, go on a massive high-speed road race. And Super Hang-On, I remember playing this one back in the day in arcades. It's really cool seeing the arcade setup there up top. I have a folder here for apps, I'll just go into it briefly. This is a lot of the different apps that either would have came with the system initially at launch, or some that got updated and put on there afterwards. So we have my Ambassador Program certificate, that was for all Nintendo Ambassador owners. We had the Save Transfer tool, Nintendo Wi-Fi Zone, that was really cool to get updates and different little perks for your games back in the day. The now defunct YouTube app for the 3DS. Nintendo's anime channel, didn't spend too much time on there, but it was cool to see some 3D videos appearing on there. Nintendo Letterbox, and this is one of my favourites. I'm actually going to turn the sound up for this, and you can hear the little sound that plays on this one. So cool. Monster Hunter Ultimate, this is the transfer tool for transferring your save data across, and the same for Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. Then we have Flipnote Studio 3D. This is really cool. You can draw yourself kind of 3D little kind of Flipnote movies. Street Pass Mii Plaza, so much time spent on this. Absolutely amazing when you took this out of your pocket and seen it was lit up green, you knew you had a Street Pass. Fantastic times. The Mii Maker for 3DS. Your health and safety, boring information. The AR games, absolutely loved these that came on the system. Something that didn't really get taken advantage of much throughout the lifetime, but it was great getting these on day one and knowing you had both this and the one above, Face Raiders, to play on the system. It was cool just having something there on day one. These were really unique experiences, bringing AR gameplay to me for the first time. And then the Nintendo 3DS Sound app. Game & Watch games, this has one game in it. I ended up not picking up many Game & Watch games, but I believe there were a few. This is Mario's Cement Factory. Then 3DS titles, so if you know my channel or you want to check out the rest of my channel, you'll know that I pick up a lot of 3DS physical games. I have a massive collection of them. So I didn't really pick up any games digitally on 3DS, but there was a promotion running at a certain point on the 3DS, and I believe it was if you bought 2 games, either digital or retail, you could redeem a voucher to get a third game for free. So that's what I done. I can't remember what the 2 games were I bought at the time, but I do remember the free game I got, which was Fire Emblem Awakening, so I do have it physical and digital. Then we have a folder for game demos. Again, this was really great back in the day, because if you were used to playing on a Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, getting the 3DS, it felt more akin to a home system. It was way more advanced, it had way more stuff in it, and being able to download demos of games and try them out was just really cool, because it's not something that we were always able to do for handheld games in the past. So I have the demo for Super Smash Bros. On the 3DS. Again, the demo for Metal Gear Solid 3D, Chibi Robo Let's Go Photo, and for Rhythm Paradise Mega Mix. Those were all locked as well to a certain number of playthroughs, so I think you could only open them 20 or 30 times, something like that. and every time you opened it, you maybe had like a 20-minute, half an hour experience, and you would only be able to play them a certain number of times. So in a way, those are kind of locked to history as well now. And the final folder I have here are some Game Gear games. So I'd never had a Game Gear back in the day, but I did always want to pick one up, and it was cool getting to play some of the titles on 3DS. So we have Tails Adventure, so a standalone Tails game from the Sonic universe. I thought it was really cool. And then we have Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble. And the final one here, Shining Force as well. The Sonic games on the Game Gear are actually really hard, I find, because the speed is there in the Sonic game, but the screen is so small and cramped, I find it really hard to play them. And then we have a number of different badges for our activity log, our camera, the settings, and the download play. You can unlock different badges for these. These are Animal Crossing themed ones, obviously. And then I have a few other little badges here just for a kind of shrine to different systems. So a couple of Super Nintendo ones, a couple of N64 ones. And if you hold on to these, you can go up here and see the rest of your badges as well. I have a number of different ones there as well. Not going to go into all of them, but it was really cool to have those back in the day to customize your system. And another way to customize your system was by going in here and changing the theme. These are a few different themes that I had. I'll go over what ones I had. Some of these were free, some of them were paid for. A Mario Kart one. Rhythm Paradise, you see, each of them had a different track that played in the background and a different, obviously, visual kind of setup. Mario Party 10, Shin Megami Tensei, a Metal Gear Solid one, Sonic, Pokémon, and the interesting thing with a lot of these, they would match special editions of the consoles or faceplates of the consoles. So as you've seen at the start of the video, I had Hanafuna card faceplates on this, and then obviously you can have a Hanafuna card theme as well, and the music and style matches in with what you've got on your faceplate. I thought that was really cool. And there are some really strange ones in here as well. Sega Dreamcast theme I thought was very strange because it's not a handheld system. It's not even a Nintendo system, but for some reason there is a theme on there. I'm actually going to change it to the Dreamcast one now to show you it. And I did have a Dreamcast back in the day. We got one at launch. My brother actually got one, I guess I should say, and then I was able to play it a lot. But very strange having it on the 3DS as an official theme. And of course there are a lot of kind of aftermarket themes now on the modding scene, but I do like having these official ones. So that's a look back at the time capsule of what is on an actual 3DS. One that was used from launch day right up until the end of the system's lifespan and is still used from time to time today. I thought it would be interesting just to show a real world scenario instead of having a modded system that can easily just get everything, to see what it was like actually having your system with official games on it and what the potential was for it to look like. If you like this 3DS video, I have a video just for you. If you click here, you'll be able to see the full history of the 3DS. This one is really cool for fans of the system, and I hope you enjoy it.